On Wednesday, the 14th of June 2023, an official announcement was made to unify all sections of the foreign exchange into one. Nigeria had an official rate, a parallel or black market rate, and the investors and exporters / IANI window, broadly speaking. All of these multiple exchange options have now collapsed into the IANI window. But what does this even mean for you? What does this mean for the Nigerian economy itself? And why should you care? Welcome to our Finance Friday episode. Today we're covering Nigeria's new exchange rate policy and everything you need to know. Without further ado, let's get to the video. Before we start, let's understand what an exchange rate is. In simple terms, an exchange rate is the rate at which one currency will be exchanged for another currency. This rate affects how countries trade with one another and how money is moved between countries. Things that make an exchange rate go up or down can be caused by a country's local currency, in this case, the naira, or the foreign currency, which is the dollar. So let's say the exchange rate from naira to dollar is 700. This means you will need 700 naira to buy $1. Do you get it? Another thing to keep in mind is the floating rate or fixed rate. A fixed rate or pegged rate is the rate that the central bank or the government sets and maintains as their official exchange rate. It's what we call the official rate. For the longest time in Nigeria, at least for many months now, this rate has been around 460 naira to $1. Typically, a fixed or pegged rate is set against the dollar, and that's the case for Nigeria and many, if not most, other countries. There's more to a fixed exchange rate, but I'll stop there for now. On the other hand, a floating exchange rate, unlike the fixed one, is determined by the private market through supply and demand. Typically, it's seen as more ideal because if there are any differences in supply and demand, it will automatically be corrected in the market where the currency is being traded. In that light, a floating exchange rate will constantly be changing or fluctuating. This floating exchange rate regime is what this new change is about. Since that announcement, there has been a considerable uptick in many things. If you go on Google, you see the rate jump from around 460 to 820 naira in a matter of days. And I tweeted about this. Banks also sent emails that people will now have to get their Form A or foreign exchange via the IANI window and not the official rate. And I'll explain that later. But first, why did we have a naira unification? Many experts and even the World Bank have called for unification in the exchange rate for quite some time now. According to the World Bank, having multiple exchange rates is expensive. They aren't great for the market participants. They cause higher inflation. They affect the development of the private sector negatively. They also affect foreign investment and lead to lower economic growth. Multiple exchange rates only benefit the people with access to foreign exchange at that subsidized or official rate. That subsidized rate is paid by everyone else, and fingers point at corruption. As of March of 2023, the official rate for naira was 461 to $1. And the parallel rate was 745. That's a 61.7% spread. And if someone has access to a lot of dollars at the official rate, say $100,000, they've made a 60+% profit from not doing anything because you were just able to trade both markets. And this affects a lot of things in the economy, directly or indirectly. One of those things is foreign investment in the country. Looking at this graph, you see how foreign direct investment into Nigeria has dropped by 90% from 2008 when it was $4.7 billion to 2022 when it became $468 million. But how would foreign exchange become lower because of exchange rates, you might ask? Well, if you're an investor and you bring in $1 million to invest, you change that money at the match rate of 461. So that's 461 million naira that you get. You did your business and you made some profit. Let's say you made 15% profit. That is 69,115,000 naira you made in profit. Now you want to change all your money back to USD. But hey, you can only do that at the parallel rate of 745. Both your 461 million naira and your 69 million naira profit, when you convert it back to dollar at the parallel rate, means you now have just $711,000. That is a lot different from the $1 million that you brought, which is a huge loss. This is definitely not attractive to any investor. And it became evident when big airlines like Emirates suspended their operations from Nigeria because they struggled to get their funds out of the country. Around $85 million that was withheld in Nigeria, according to CNN. The International Air Transport Association also talks about how Nigeria is holding onto $450 million in revenue that belongs to foreign carriers in the country. The primary attribution was the local currency's free fall against the dollar. It also didn't help that crude oil revenues, which helps Nigeria earn the central part of its foreign exchange and helps bolster our foreign reserves, also fell a lot. Also, if you're finding this video useful, do consider subscribing to the channel for more insightful videos like this. So what happened next? What are the changes? Less than 2 weeks after Nigeria's new president assumed office, the central bank governor was immediately suspended from office. The reason was that there was an ongoing investigation of the office and planned reforms in the economy's financial sector. The governor's office was immediately taken over by the deputy governor in charge of operations, pending the investigation and reforms. This policy seems to be one of the reforms, and according to the press release by the director of financial markets, these are some of the changes that are coming. The first change is the cancellation of multiple exchange rates. What this means is that the government has said, hey, we no longer like having the official rate, the pegged rate, or that fixed rate that we talked about in the previous section, the parallel market rate or the black market rate, and the investor and exporters windows all existing together. We don't want that anymore. Everything is now floating and will be determined by market supply. They also said that the applications for school fees, business travel allowance, personal travel allowance, medicals, and SME funds would continue to be processed through commercial banks. The rate for that will be through the I&E window, and if you've got a Nigerian bank, you would have received an email from them that looks like this. The second change is the reintroduction of the willing buyer, willing seller model at the I&E window. This means that all eligible transactions can access foreign exchange at the preferred rate of agreement between a willing buyer and a willing seller. This change also supports the idea of market forces for the pricing of exchange rates, and it was previously adopted in 2017. Another change is the reintroduction of the order book, so you can see the exchange quotes as it goes both ways, so that it can facilitate transparency. Here, everyone can see what people are trading, the asking price, the bids. It will become more open, and people who want their currency at a specific price